Hello, Coach Tony here to do a Q&A with Coach Kendra Kinnison. Kendra has been one of our longest running and most prolific coaches on a number of business and productivity topics, and she's also the grader for our behavioral certification. So thank you, Kendra, for being here. Why don't we just start by you talking a little bit about how you got into coaching and what you're specialized and focused on right now.
Sure. So interesting journey. I think I first started when it was Lyft, and we were just, kind of fellow habit nerds that, enjoyed the power of tracking our habits. And I think we met maybe 2011, 2012, and had even had some conversations way back then on just habit tracking. And so as the app and the tool pivoted to coaching, I thought that sounded interesting and sort of, just took the baby steps to do that. I had done some coaching locally, before that, and my roles within companies, you could say, you required, when you have leadership roles within a company, you're often coaching your employees. And so had done that, although I didn't necessarily make the connection between the two until much later. So just started with simple, we joke now with flossing. So I started with coaching really my family. My mom sort of kind of fell in love with the app, still uses it, and it kind of formed a neat connection between us to coach her back then on flossing, and some other family friends. And so just, that's how it began. And then I think that was 5 years ago. Holy cow. Maybe you'll have to help me with the math, but, and then just kind of took each step all along the way, and then over time began to see how kind of what I was doing in real life and what I was doing online had this, they were really quite parallel, and I could merge the two, so that I started feeling more comfortable using the skills that I had developed in real life with some of the nuance of online coaching and kind of putting those together. So now I still coach on all sorts of things because I coach a lot of new coaches, and so I'll often kind of customize to what works best for them. But I would say the areas that I think I can offer most help to folks is what's traditionally called productivity coaching, and also in leadership coaching. So that's really what I enjoy. I think it's fun to impact other folks' lives, and so coaching other leaders is the best way to do that.
Perfect. So we're going to go round robin. People are going to ask you questions. I'm going to pass the first time around for myself, but I'll have questions later. So can I start with Donita? Do you have a question for Kendra?
Sure. So I know you've been coaching for quite a while. So tell me how your specialization has changed over your years of coaching on Coach.me.
Yeah. So it started out with so super simple. It was kind of corny. I think I probably coached my first 100 people on flossing. That was a thing, in like 2013, 2014. And so, that was it was a fun way to learn, because you don't have to worry about being perfect, right? If you're coaching flossing and you're not great at it, the world's not going to end. And so in a funny way, I think it was actually a real blessing for me to start off with something just that low risk, and to start off with friends and family, because you could kind of learn the nuance and get feedback from people without really worrying about whether you were going to wreck their lives, right? So I taught flossing. I coached meditation for a while. I coached how to wake up on time. And what's funny is I still coach kind of all of those things, just more in a more comprehensive toolkit. But I still encourage people to kind of take them one at a time in the layers of good habits. So I still use much of that it's not really packaged the same way, but it's still, the elements of coaching are still very similar. I developed my intro message, like 3 years ago. And I fine tune it from time to time. And I certainly tailor it maybe 20 to 25% for each client based on their survey. But the basic steps of how I start coaching is scarily consistent. And every time I sit down to kind of think about, does it need updating, I'll inevitably get feedback from people like, oh, this was so helpful. And I think, okay, well, still working. So, stick with it. But I think being able to start simple was a huge gift. And one I definitely encourage all coaches to try for a couple of months if they can. Does that help? Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gwen, how about you?
Okay. Let's see. This question is, now I lost it. So one of the hallmarks of a great coach on this platform is being able to connect with people online. And you do that particularly well. So what is your secret? How do you, you are coaching so many people at a time, but I think my impression is that everybody feels like you are really devoted to them and giving them a personalized message. And I think that's really a skill in this platform, to be able to coach a lot of people at the same time without sending cut and paste stuff and making it feel like everybody's getting cut and paste.
Yeah. So I almost never use the bulk feature. I've used it twice. I used it in the few weeks right after the hurricane hit last August, and then I actually used it last Friday on kind of the anniversary of the hurricane. So in general, I don't do bulk messages at all. I do kind of think that isn't what folks have signed up for generally. I think that would be like more of a plan or something like that. So just philosophically, to me, those are kind of like an emergency situation. I definitely, it's almost painful to kind of use that bulk feature, but sometimes I feel like it's necessary. So the survey, I have folks take an initial survey, and I'll really kind of pester them to take it and to answer it at least reasonably completely. And I get some resistance sometimes. Folks like, well, I'll just chat it to you. And I'm like, no. I need you to do it in the survey, because that sends me, it sends me an email that's easily searchable for me. And so often I'll have like dual panes in my computer. I almost always coach from the computer, almost never from the phone. Again, only kind of like in an emergency, I promised someone I would check on them at a certain time kind of a thing, which I don't tend to do particularly often, but every once in a while, particularly for a long-standing client or, somebody that really needs help, I'll do whatever I can. But in general, I coach from the web interface, and I'll have my surveys on one pane or one part of the screen and my coaching window on the other. And so I'm constantly referencing back to the survey, which I'm asking things like, why is this important to you? If you don't respond for a couple days, what would you like for me to do? And I don't always even follow necessarily what people say, but they'll give you good insights. They'll say like, I want to do this because I want to be a good example for my daughters, for example. Somebody might say something like that. And so if they're going missing for a couple days, I'll say, and gently, like super gently, I'll say, hey, let's carve out some time this Sunday night to set a game plan for the week, maybe even do it at the kitchen table with your daughters so they can kind of map out their week as well. So I'll try to tie back into their why, and for every person, it can be really intensely personal, what their why is. And so I try to keep that information, right as I'm messaging them, or I'll use the notes field if somebody shared something with me like after the survey that I want to remember to check in with them at a certain time, or follow up on a certain project. So I try to take good notes on what people say is important and why it's so the same, like being in control of our day is a goal that all of us have. That part is generally similar, but why it's important to us, for every one of us, it could be different. And so I try to really understand the why for each person and to be reminded of that every time I'm sending that person a message. And it's also why I think as you coach people over time, it gets even better because you can kind of learn what works and what doesn't, what's actually effective for getting people to do the behaviors that they say they want to do, not behaviors that I want them to do, but they say they want to do these behaviors. And so as a good coach, how do I get them to do their own behaviors? And so when something's working, I kind of make a note of it, or when something doesn't work, I make a note of that too, and different things work for different, some people like the visual Pinterest style images with quotes on it. I have a handful of clients that they love those, and to get that is like super powerful. I have other clients that could care less about something like that. So just trying to maybe the content isn't that different, but the delivery, I think, can be is where it's important for each client to try to understand and to figure out what connects with people.
Thanks.
Nathan, are you going to be asking questions today?
Yeah, I can ask a question.
Good.
The question I was thinking about earlier was just you coach a lot of new coaches. Are there things that you that stand out to you that you kind of often are helping other new coaches with? Things that you might want to share on that?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is new coaches often don't want to be clients, or don't really want to be clients. They want to kind of only be coached on coaching itself, which is often a little too meta to be effective. Like they don't want to back up and pick something kind of silly. I think all of us have something in our life that we want to be better, right? So if it's flossing, if it's our bedtime, if it's walking a little more, if it's eating more vegetables, if it's drinking more water. I mean, there's got to be like some area of life. We're not all, like mutants. There's got to be some area of life where we feel like I could be doing a little bit better in this area. And so I wish more coaches would be open sooner to kind of truly getting that experience and that aha of how powerful that can be, because once you experience it, then you're like, oh, I get it. I get why people actually, enjoy this and kind of keep coming back to this. Because I think without the aha, too many coaches are kind of like, well, is this for real? Does it really work? Until you've lived it and you're like, oh my gosh, it really does. Like, it really does work. It really is life-changing. And it really is, not rocket science, but there's a certain art and science to it, but it's not overly complicated. I think anybody could learn it. And so I think that patience to like give it 3 weeks to truly immerse yourself for 10 minutes a day in the experience of what behavioral coaching is. Because I think inherently the type of coaching that we do, even if you expand to be more than behavioral coaching, I think there's almost always some behavioral coaching elements. And so if you're missing that foundation, I think you're like handicapping yourself to some degree. And so that would be the first thing. The second would be starting simple. So I think if coaches would give themselves like 90 days, 30 days to be a client and just not really have huge expectations for themselves other than just to try it. Another 30 days to coach like their mom and their brother and their sister on something that they would even call silly, right? Again, like a flossing or a drink more water or something like that. And then another 30 days with kind of that next level of, coworker or slightly more risky, right? Type of still somebody, but, not your mom, right? Somebody that's going to maybe hold you to a slightly higher standard than your mom, and give you that feedback on, whether the coaching is working or not. I think you get a sense in 4 or 5 days whether, and you're always going to have a few misses, but in general, you see people, and we see people, and I'm sure you've seen it, where people are like, oh my gosh, this is totally changing my life, and there's really not much more rewarding than that. And so I think that stair step of just giving it just a hair more time would be really valuable. I don't know if that's exactly
awesome.
Where you were going with the question.
No, that's very good. That's very good. It's probably beyond what I was thinking, but definitely I've seen that same thing, like when working with a few coaches that wanted to get started, trying to guide them back to this idea of, just be a client right now and experience the platform so you can understand it, right? And I love what you're saying about, the transition to 30 days, 30, 30, 30, 30. Even if it's not split up exactly like that, just that idea of, I like it. I think that's good. Thanks.
Elke, are you going to chime in here? If not, how about you, Kirby? The way we're just going round robin, asking questions of Kendra.
No, I don't have anything right now.
All right, great. We'll come back around to you in a second then, actually. Kendra, here's a question that I've never had a chance to ask you. It's when we launched habit coaching in 2015, one of the core theories, which was completely unproven at the time, was that you could flip coaching around, and instead of starting big and trying to get into deep into root problems, you could start small and grow your way into bigger problems. And so you, I believe, have 5 clients that started with you, about 5 clients that started with you in 2015 to form a habit, and now 4 years later are still working with you. So so now we actually should be able to say what happens after the habit is formed. What are these clients, what did they move on to work with you on? The more habit?
Yeah. So, I think I don't know what the actual stats are, but I definitely tend to, other than new coaches who sometimes are literally canceling on the 30th day, I would say if you separate that out, I think I typically coach people really long times, 6 months, a year, well over a year. So I think of it as just layers, and we can go as fast or as slow as people need. And then sometimes you have to back up and work on other, life happens or whatever it might be. So let me think about a particular client. So probably my longest client, she's a super awesome executive in Australia. And, got a family and kind of got all of the different challenges of modern day life. And so we focus, again, we try to take, I really think the momentum method is for real. I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but I believe it's a very consistent way to achieve progress. Other ways certainly can work, but I think for anybody that's willing to engage, the momentum method will work. And so we just start on the schedule. Almost always I start on the schedule. And almost always I start with bedtime. If life is crazy, we start with bedtime, and then we move to wake up time, and then we move to, a 10-minute morning routine, and then we go to a 30-minute morning routine, and then we go to the first 30 minutes of your work day. And we just kind of just literally take it layer by layer. And then inevitably it'll be, well, I've got this big client presentation coming up. Can we rehearse for that kind of a thing? All of the different challenges, I'm having challenges with my kids or my coworker or my employees or life happens and you may kind of take hiatuses from the behavioral and work on event specific coaching, or tragic things may happen, and I'm there to be a support. Sometimes they pause, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they go silent for a while, and I've kind of learned to just trust, and just be encouraging and trust that they're going to come back. I had one client that had twins, and it was a really complicated birth, and like 6 months later, he came back and he was like, "Hey, I enjoyed the messages. I was too stressed to reply. But I knew, every couple of days you were going to send something encouraging, and, now I'm back, and let's get started." So I'm just kind of that guide through life. If it seems like things are really going well, I'll say, "Hey, what can we work on? What's something that you've wanted to do that you're not doing right now? What could be better?" Or oftentimes what they need to work on is bubbling right up and hitting them front and center. But I do think the extended time is super helpful, because we learn, and we've got other folks here that have been coaching folks, I'm sure, for a long time, but you really learn what helps somebody, how to support them in a healthy way. And that's a really neat and rewarding feeling.
Perfect. Donita, back around to you.
So what do you really like about coaching? Coaching on this platform is different than in-person coaching. And I know you said you've done both in person and this one. What do you find really valuable, maybe personally, or maybe there's been a success story, but why do you keep doing it?
Okay, so first of all, without this platform, I don't think I could. And I think the last year drove that point home, in case I ever had any doubts otherwise. But the flexibility that the platform offers, you have effectively no administrative burden, right? To be a coach, you're not dealing with charge. I mean, if you've ever coached privately, you realize just the act of getting paid and invoicing and dealing with chargebacks and people changing their credit cards and just all of the different things is a time consuming and not real fun part of coaching. And so I love that is, you pay a fee for that, but effectively you don't even have to think about that. It happens for you. I can just focus on taking care of whatever clients are on my doorstep, and that's literally how I think about it. So for me, I just love that I'm able to coach. It's a ton of fun to get the message of, oh wow, this is super. I don't know. I think that's my fuel in life, is positive feedback. So I think coaching is a good fit for me, because that particular is I don't know. I just think that is my fuel. And so coaching fits well, but I love the flexibility. I don't promise any certain that I'm going to respond at X time of day or not. In particular, the hurricane year, man, if I ever thought I had a rhythm, it taught me not that I don't. But sometimes I get up real early and do coaching. Sometimes I find a break, during the middle of the day and coach. Sometimes it's late in the evening. When I coach, the coaching calls, I do have certain kind of bands of time that I know are generally good. And I only schedule coaching calls kind of in those rhythms, and that can be tricky. I do kind of have a limit to the number of coaching calls those type of clients that I'll take. But the chat coaching, I love it. And I just love how effective it is. And man, every once in a while I'll start to, so new coaches are hard to coach. I'm just going to say there's not a lot of positive feedback often. I find them actually harder to coach than regular clients, again, because of that. I don't know. They're not necessarily in it to be a client. And so to convince someone to be a regular person hires you, they're already a client. They want to be a client. Life is good. They're ready to move forward. A new coach is different. And so that positive feedback is often missing. And so my fuel is then kind of missing. But then I'll get a couple of other clients, and it's like, oh yeah, this is why I do this. This is the good fuel. So sorry, long answers. I guess I can't be concise.
Perfect. They're great. Gwen, back to you. You're muted still, Gwen.
Okay. So, part of the purpose of this call is to have an opportunity to get to know you. So if we were to refer someone to you, we would know what kind of client best to refer to you. So tell me, who would be your favorite kind of client to have? With all your experience, who would be really fun for you to coach?
So I love people that love their teams and want to get better so that they can support their teams. And team can be broad. Like, it can be their family. It can be a literal work team. It can be like, I really enjoy people that want to be positive supports to the other people in their lives. And so I think I'm particularly good at helping people do that and helping people not lose themselves. So I think there's some common pitfalls for those of us that kind of enjoy that service mindset. And so we often have to remember how to take care of ourselves kind of during that process. And so I have lived that a few cycles. And so I think I can be particularly helpful. But folks that use the word service, that are really passionate about being good leaders because they want their teams to succeed, because they want to train up other folks to do well. I think that's just a good match for me, and I get a real kick out of helping people do that. Like, I have a client right now that her teenage son is kind of getting involved in the business, and it's been an awesome way for them to connect. Like, that fuels me for days. Like, that dynamic right there, I think is really cool, and I just enjoy being a part of that process and like facilitating that, or helping people think of ways to do that, to know how to grow other people around them is what I most enjoy. And then folks that are just feeling like stuck. I think I've developed some exercises and some techniques that if people just feel like, man, I am working super hard, but I'm not going anywhere. I think that's another person that I've just seen enough reps of that usually I can identify 2 or 3 different, again, momentum method, but often figuring out where to start can be tricky. And so usually after exchanging a couple of messages with them, I can have a few ideas that within 2 or 3 suggestions, we can kind of get them moving forward again. And that's rewarding too, right? To hear somebody say like, oh man, I've just felt frustrated for a really long time, and now I feel like I'm making progress again. So I think those are the most common client types.
Great, thanks.
Nathan, back around to you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. You gave me some really good advice when I was going through the coaching feedback early on, and I thought it would be helpful for other coaches, is your kind of approach to testimonials, like when to get a testimonial from a client and how those are valuable to coaches. And you gave me some good strategy that I still use now. And I just thought, like, maybe you want to share some of that, or maybe you have even updated information on that I can take from you as well.
Well, I think I may need to take my own advice. I've kind of stopped asking for them. So this is a good reminder. But I used to, it finally dawned on me that it's a really good time to ask when a person has just achieved like a breakthrough. And so sometimes so the only time the system prompts is when they cancel, right? But if you're coaching people for years, like, they're not going to get a prompt to leave a testimonial. So there can kind of be a negative in, a not a good cycle there, where client retention can actually, not be a good thing. And so I started learning, like, when they'd have maybe not the first breakthrough, but like the second one, I would say, hey, would you mind leaving a testimonial and sharing specifically, like, how this helped you. Because I think some people, when they come to coaching, they're like, can this really work? You know, like $60 a month or less than $100 a month, like, is really going to change my life? Are you kidding me? And so I think people come to online clients, come to online coaching somewhat skeptical. Like, is this really going to work? It's almost too cheap to be, you know, like, it's almost like got to be a scam, right? Kind of a thing. And so I think, but reading testimonial after testimonial of like, no, focusing on my schedule and going to bed on time, like, changed my life, you know, kind of a thing. And so I would ask people to leave testimonials. Sometimes I would even have like another person in mind that I wanted to coach, but they were skeptical. And so I wanted somebody similar to leave a testimonial. So then I could go send the testimonial to the other person and go, see, like, it really can work, you know, like whether they hired me or hired another coach, just to help them see that the online coaching methodology itself is consistently effective. Like, if you'll work the process, it will work. And so for me, testimonials kind of represented, again, like fuel to that fire. But so I think if you have clients a really long time, you know, it's important to ask them at some point. And for me, it's like maybe the second or third aha for them where they're like, wow, this is really cool. Then to ask for the testimonial.
Yeah, that's exactly what I remember you shared that with me. And one little tweak to what you had said at that time, you mentioned to me that, you know, just giving them that indication that, you know, you liked working with them, you know, they're an ideal client, you know, and you want, you know, it's a good way for you to get more clients is for them to see themselves in the clients on your profile. That really stuck with me, and it's really worked well at connecting with clients to get those testimonials and ones that are effective, like you said, you know, because sometimes people get the results, but they just sign off and don't leave feedback, and they don't realize how, you know, for the coach, that's not, you know, it's not helpful to like help people, but then not be able to show, you know, new clients that there's some credibility there, or some, you know, especially the verified ones where they've paid and they've, you know, they prove that it shows that they worked with you, right? So
right.
Cool. Thank you.
Perfect. Misa, you joined late. We're just going round robin with opportunities to ask questions of Kendra. I just unmuted you. Do you have a question? If not, it'll probably come back around to you. Elke is passing. Kirby, are you passing again?
No, I'm actually, I want to ask a question. Let's see here. Yeah, I wanted to ask about prospecting. Is there like a particular routine that you go through? So I know you've been on for a while, and I know my first paid client was somebody that came through my website through my referral, and I had him for about a year and a half. And then finally I went through and got the coaching certification stuff done because I just drug my feet at it a little bit. And then when I got it done, I did the whole New Year's Eve resolution thing. And I had this huge, like, surge of clients. And then all of a sudden it just tanked again. You know, is there like a particular routine that you go through for prospecting, you know, like you're doing something, you know, on a weekly basis or daily basis, or, you know, how do you kind of keep the fish tank full?
Yeah. So I've thought about this question a lot, and I would say, first of all, I probably don't do as much as I know I don't do as much as I could, and I hesitate to say should, but probably don't do as much as I should. Again, I think my like single biggest strategy is retention. So like if you keep a client, you don't have to replace them, right? So I would say just keeping a client and being consistent is probably the number one. My number one strategy is just be a great coach. Like if I'm being a great coach, then I kind of trust that other good things will happen. I think I get also most of my new clients from referral, from like existing clients, and it probably doesn't show up as a technical referral because they don't really know to use codes or anything like that. But you know, I'll coach husbands and wives, or a lot of people at the same company, or different things like that. And so I also on my website I have a an autoresponder series where people sign up to get, and I think it's an ebook, and this is all out of date. So like the whole last year, I just maintained. The hurricane like totally knocked me off track. So I really didn't do anything new for the last year. I just kept what I already had in place, and really it surprisingly worked really well. Like I think my average income is probably only off 10% or something like that, which to me is kind of a win, to just kind of aim to maintain. But previous to that, so I have a website that I wrote articles on regularly. I have an opt-in. I have an autoresponder series that's like a 6 or 7 part, where I'm kind of offering coaching, almost automated, again, through my autoresponder, and then at the end, asking them to become clients. So I get a fair amount. That I'll probably have 3 to 5 people a week sign up for my opt-in on my website, and then it just kind of trickles from there to that. For a while, I wrote on Medium, kind of long before all the opportunities that are there now. Like, I'll admit I haven't taken advantage of those or really even studied them all that much, but just writing on Medium, and then sharing that like with my own connections on social media, kind of gave people a way to talk about coaching. It's hard for me locally because I'm so visible as the leader of a hotel, that it's kind of hard locally to position myself as a coach. I almost feel like I kind of have double identity sometimes, like one identity in real life and another identity online, although my website is super transparent and everybody that I work with knows that I coach. They know it kind of keeps me sane too. So sometimes I'll even be like, go away, go coach for a while and come back. Cause I know it makes me happy. So, so I think being consistent and keeping clients and just always trying to be of service, hard to go wrong. And then having something where we're able to demonstrate our expertise first. So, whether it's an ebook or like Donita just wrote a book, I think that's going to be a legit, real, fantastic, awesome book. I think that's going to be number one, she wrote a book. But number two, I think that's going to be an incredible lead for coaching. Cause it's like, people don't have to wonder if we're good at what we're talking about. Like it's right there. Right there in front of them. So I think having some way to demonstrate that is a win. And then, just being helpful, maybe on social media, Twitter and Facebook, of just like when people ask for things, linking to articles or just always trying to be of service. And then, people will private message you and be like, wow, that was really interesting. And then you'll be like, oh, by the way, I coach, here's how to sign up. Hopefully that helps. I don't know that I gave a wonderful answer. There are certainly people that do prospecting way better. And maybe we could even do a Q&A. I'll try to think of some folks. But there are definitely folks that excel at that. Maybe someday I will. But for now, consistency is, I just try to keep that in mind.
Okay, fair enough.
I might ask a follow-up on prospecting. Because you said so matter-of-factly that you got your early clients from your family and your friends. Like, sometimes I talk to other coaches who are just like, I have no idea where to get clients. It's like, do you not have family and friends? And I think that there's a real, something's going on for them. But I'm curious, since you didn't seem to have that problem, what's going on for you?
So I think the people that struggle with that is they want to coach like comprehensively. Like, so I'll just take my mom. I don't really want to coach my mom in certain areas of life. Like there's just certain things you don't even want to go there, but flossing or drinking more water or walking for 10 minutes a day. Yeah. Completely comfortable coaching my mom in those. So I think part of it is habit selection. Like, do you want to go to your best friend and say, hey, I want to teach you how to set priorities for your day? No, probably not. But do you want to go to your best friend and say, hey, can I teach you you've talked about meditating. Like, how about I work with you to fit in 10 minutes of meditation a day? Or, you've talked about that you want to, spend more time with your kids in the evening. Like, I don't really think the habit matters I think the will to change and it being a really tiny thing is what matters most. And Gwen and I worked with another coach. I'll brag on her. She came to the new coach office hours like 4 or 5 weeks in a row. And she had like a certain specialty that she was aiming for. And, but then on like the 3rd or 4th week, she was like, you know what? I'm going to coach people on how to identify 3 positive things that happened every single day. So she had taken kind of this big picture of like teaching people how to be positive and broken it down to, I'm going to coach people on how to be grateful for 3 things a day. And she got her initial clients, I think, pretty rapidly right after that. So I think it's the habit selection, and willing to make it like specific, and you can grow it from there. Like once you teach your friends how to drink more water, they're going to be like, hey, well, I also want to start working out. Can you use the same philosophy to teach me with that? So it's not like you're going to be stuck. Most people have an endless list of like things they've wanted to do that they're not doing. If you help them with the first one, they're naturally going to ask you to help them with the second one. So I think it's almost always the habit selection that trips people up, because it would be really weird to go to your friends and family on, like these really complex topics. It would just be strange to even approach them about coaching with that.
Can I ask a follow-up question? What credibility do you think your family was perceiving in that moment? So on the one hand, they're related to, they love you as a friend or a family member. Since I know you so well, like I knew you had a habit blog. I knew you know everything about BJ Fogg. You've been through all the habit stuff. So had you shared that with them beforehand, your passion for that area? Or did they really just say yes because they know and love you?
I kind of hid the habit. I mean, the habit nerd stuff, it was not something I lead with, in my normal interactions. Again, I kind of felt like I led parallel lives. Like I had this in real life where I tried to be fairly normal, and then online I could sort of indulge my weird interests, habits being one of them. So no, I don't think they knew that. I think all my life I've been a pretty consistent person, and I think maybe that's got some inherent credibility attached to it. That's a really good question.
I'm glad I asked it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe just consistency and like always, I'd like to think that kind of that growth mindset of always having some area where you're trying to get a little bit better in, and maybe I have been fairly transparent with people, because I do well with external accountability. So if I'm trying to change something about myself, I usually will tell 2 or 3 people and ask them to hold me accountable. And so maybe those folks had been people that I, when I wanted to meditate, or when I wanted to floss, or when I wanted to wake up at a certain time, or whatever, that they kind of knew that I was doing that and that I had been successful. So maybe that was it. Yeah. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Right. But you seem not shy about asking people, and that feels important. We don't have to be shy. We're asking to help people, and people want, they want to be helped.
Well, I mean, I think I just said, hey, I'm starting online coaching. Like, I flossed at that point. I think I'd flossed for like 1,000 days straight, and it like totally changes your life. Just for the record, I'd recommend it for everybody. But I think I was just super excited about it. It's like, hey, do you wanna get better at floss? It was just such a corny kind of easy that and meditation. I think kind of before everybody was coaching meditation. That was a fun thing to coach on.
Gwen, how about you? More questions from you?
No, I can't think of anything right now.
Nathan?
I'm good. I think I'm good. I think she's had lots of good answers there already.
I have a backlog of things that people put in the chat that I'll start pulling from in a second, but let me just finish Kirby, it came back around to you. Do you have one you want to deliver right now?
Not right now.
Perfect. So one was from Elkie, was asking, you go to your friend, you say, hey, can I teach you this or that? But then at some point you have to explain to them, what is coach.me? Like when you brought them into the platform to join a chat with you, to respond to you in this chat, to track their habit. How did you teach them to do that? That's a new behavior in its own right.
Yeah, so I don't think I focused on necessarily the app as a whole. I just explained that the only way I coach is through there. Like I don't coach any other way, just because it would be way too complicated. And I don't know that I appreciated all of this again until this last year.
Yeah.
But just having like one screen to go like into coach mode, and I'm only coaching when I'm in that mode. And so I just explained to people that's like the only, if you want me to coach you, that's the only way I coach, is through there. And so I just focused on the coaching side of it. Like I don't necessarily explain check-ins or the habit tracking until kind of they're in rhythm. So it's kind of like, what's the minimum understanding that they need to have to make it work. And depending on kind of their age and technical ability, some people I'll refer to the website and some people I'll refer to the app. I don't find that to be a huge hurdle. It hasn't come up a lot
right.
as a hurdle.
Gwen, Nathan, at this point, raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going to keep pulling from questions that I have that other people typed to me. Well, this is my own question, actually. How do you understand the behavioral coaching, the momentum method, as different or complementary to the traditional coaching, or what's under the International Coaching Federation's umbrella of certifications?
Okay, so this is probably where ignorance is bliss. So I've read probably, looking at I've probably read literally hundreds of books on leadership and gone to lots of courses and things, but I've never been like trained in any sort of way to be a coach. Like, I've definitely done management training or leadership training within a company, but never like as a coach. So I don't know that I can compare, but to me, what the momentum method represents is do the next right thing. Mm-hmm. So don't try to focus on everything, but continually do a little bit better over time and let that kind of snowball. So start with something really small and then let it, so like, let's just go back to flossing. So you would start with a commitment to floss 1 tooth a day, and only 1 tooth a day, but always 1 tooth a day. So like you would literally never go to bed without flossing your teeth. And then we might graduate to, okay, well now if you wear contacts, let's put the floss container near your contacts because you're going to touch your contacts every day. So let's like put the floss container there so that you remember to do that. Oh, but then when I travel, I might forget. Okay, so let's buy another thing of floss and put it in your travel kit so we would like every time you go off track, it's like, okay, what's one little tiny tweak to make that work? And so whether it's flossing or whether it's going to bed on time or eating your vegetables or whatever, it's just always like this steady little turn of the dial of tons and tons of small little changes that add up to progress, as opposed to trying to make like massive sweeping changes.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. From the questions here, this is a good one. What do you do with negative feedback? Which, of course, all coaches get from time to time, especially on our platform. The client might not have been given the right expectations, and might come in with their own expectations that don't match what you're actually doing. I'm sure you've gotten a number of unhelpfuls across the years.
So this is an area where probably my day job has helped me have thicker skin. So I run a hotel. And so guests are like not shy about telling you how they really feel. And I also, our hotel is a homeowners association. And so I also interact with a lot of owners that aren't shy about that. And so I get a lot of experience in dealing with negative feedback, perhaps every day. And so I try really hard to figure out is there something useful? So like, forget the paper it's wrapped in. Like, is there something useful in what they're saying that I can extract from it? And oftentimes, if they'll hang around long enough, I try to affirm that. So I try to say, wow, okay, that stung, but what I heard you say was that I could have been more responsive. Or so I'll acknowledge, sometimes in a joking way, sometimes in a very humble, I'm sorry way, where our expectations were misaligned, but I'll try to repeat back something that is a teaching moment for myself that I can learn from my interaction with them, and affirm that. And then if I can adapt my behavior, then I'll try. If they're asking for something that I'm probably not going to ever be able to meet, I'll try to offer alternatives. If it's another coach or a book, or whatever it might be. So I try to find the positive. I do try hard not to take it personal, although that's hard. Yeah, I think looking for the positive, being comfortable affirming, and then going, okay, where do we go from here?
Right.
And then not letting it have more weight than it should. So like, if we've screwed up, we got to feel bad that we screwed up. It shouldn't be like the feedback that makes us feel bad, just as we shouldn't get too high in like good feedback. So I try to kind of keep my my emotions in like that middle range, and like always look for the lesson. That's kind of what I repeat to myself. Okay, look for the lesson, look for the lesson, look for the lesson. And so it helps me to not get so hung up in the sting if I can look for something positive to extract from it.
Right. Perfect. Well, we're about at the end of the time. So why don't we wrap up? Kendra, this was great. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you and ask all these questions.
This was fun.
Yeah, great. Thank you.